Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Soft Kitty event, in which the Sekhite Priestess is added to the game. So this week brings the new PvP season, so you'll be able to go earn a bunch of burning marks, as well as 4 potential new troops, 2 immortals and 2 in the shop. So great time to be going and doing PvP again, to go get all those one-time rewards as well from the PvP pass and everything else. Beyond that, we do have Guild Wars this week. It is specifically for that of Suncrest, so we'll be going over a bunch of teams for that in this video as well. One for high rarity, middle rarity, and low rarity, as well as just all of the troops for the entire week as far as all the teams. So first things first, let's go over the new PvP season. So PvP season, of course, over in the PvP section right over here. This means a reset of the PvP pass. So if you want to go and get any of the free or otherwise paid rewards from here, it is 77 days to go do so. So 11 weeks, so plenty of time. Beyond that, of course, all the one-time seasonal rewards are also completely free here. And you end up getting a bunch of burning marks for, I believe it's 10, 20, and then 45 of the new troop. So there are 2 new immortals and 2 new troops. As far as the immortals are concerned, they're actually not that bad. The location of the primary one, his ability is great. This troop in general, this is the current immortal for this current season. It is really good. The problem with it is its location. So it deals a bunch of true damage of heavy splash, so 75% to the 2 that are adjacent to it, to 3 random enemies. This puts it at one of the highest, if not the absolute highest, of any of the true damagers that we have from the PvP troops, from any of the immortals. The big issue with this, it is boosted by barrier gem, so he gets even more damage on that. The problem is, Adania is his location. Big issue with this is generally Central Spire and the 3 around it are really easy to build good teams for. You're either going to be going some kind of huge man accumulation team, or just go into like Stellaryx or Flower Dragon. There's always like some kind of team you could run for one of these 4. As in middle, you could use anything, and for the other 3, you generally have enough options, you'll be able to put something together. The problem with this is he is in one of these 3 middle locations, which are not as good to use the secondary effect of why you even use immortals to begin with, and that's to offset something that might be weak. For example, dwarf is a pretty bad category for the most part, not the worst in the world, but this basically forces you to have to use Immortal Glacia then, or anything else that's in the immortal category here, which, never mind, only is Immortal Glacia. So it kind of forces you to have to use one of these immortals, and if yours happens to be strong, then it does a bunch of extra damage, everything else that it has, so that's nice. However, when you are going and selecting one that you might want to go and upgrade, like if you're actually going to buy the PvP pass and so on and so forth, or if you're going to dump a bunch of burning marks on a given season, you generally want it to be on something in the outer ring. Like, for example, I believe last season's outer ring was that one orc guy who was from the Broken Lands, I believe, over here. So for this category, if the category wasn't already good, this one's Zhejian, so it's already pretty solid. But if it wasn't, you can end up incorporating him, as you can see by literally everyone here incorporating him. So of course last season was a little bit more enticing in that regard, because even though the troop was technically weaker as far as what the immortal was, like last season's immortal was, this one, was slightly weaker than what this immortal is this season. However, the location that you can use it at is way, way better, because it's outer ring, not center ring. And for that reason, even though this guy is decently strong, he's actually not that good, surprisingly, in the sense that the main situation that you would use it, aka PvP, it's just in an area where you're already going to have a solid team. Like, this is yellow. You'll be able to run something with EE Cattle. You'll have, like, a cheap Queen Zachi teams. You obviously have Takshaka spam. Obviously, any location like this, you could run Stellaryx and or Flower Dragon. So there's already so many things. Oh, you can run Pharaoh, which also an event key drop tables, by the way. We'll get to that soon, but he's an event key this week. But there's so many things you could already be running in any of these that you don't really utilize the fact that you can use an immortal in their location like that. Like, obviously, you could still use them if you want to, but you probably already have a better alternative laying around in the standard troop, even when accounting for his double damage. But yeah, he's not bad. 40% score reduction with invulnerable, obviously solid. He gets to convert a purple to barrier gem, which actually is value. He's not converting a yellow into a yellow, he's converting a purple into a yellow, so he is technically getting value there. The enemy might be able to get some of that barrier gem, but overall he will be utilizing it for his boost ratio, as well as potentially to help barrier your own team, as you will have one turn to immediately go and utilize it, though if you don't, the enemy might get a little bit of barrier, which will help protect against them. But he is doing so many instances of damage that even if the enemy was to get barrier across their whole team, you're still hitting so many times that you're still doing a pretty substantial amount of damage to them. But overall, great immortal, horrible location is basically what it comes down to. We also got this new one. This is actually somewhat similar. It's a 5-hit true damager. It's very similar to, we were just mentioning it, Immortal Glacia. Deal true damage to 5 enemies, deal true damage to 5 enemies. Basically the same premise, except for Bay of Stars, and if he deals double damage, destroy an X shape. If this was the focused mythic, this would have been better, because Bay of Stars, forget where it is, but that should be outer, yeah. So if this was the focused mythic, then it would be a lot more enticing to actually go for it, because it's basically just Immortal Glacia, but for Bay of Stars instead of Winter's Reach. But it's not the focus mythic, so it's going to be really hard to get copies of it. Proof of that, I still don't have Immortal Glacia. This is 2 seasons ago. This was last season. This is this season. I haven't opened it yet, so I haven't had a chance to get it. This is 2 seasons ago, and I still have 0 copies of Al. How? So things like this, whenever they add them, I still don't know sure why they do this. They always add 2 Immortals. One that is the focus one and one that isn't. The Immortal Leo is the non-focus one, and oddly enough, it's the better one. And this is the focus one, which is overall really strong, really good, but it's in a really bad location. But yeah, they always do this. They had 2 of them. One of them really easy to get, which of course this one really hard to get, which is the Immortal Leo, which is basically just Immortal Glacia for a different location. But yeah, and if you just want to get them, of course, Burning Marks or Burning Chests, ideally just opening the standard chests. However, if you ever see 3 really good ones here that you really want, you could end up opening up these as well. You get less overall value, but you get a focus as far as what you end up getting. So if these were like 3 really good Immortals and you wanted all 3 of these are definitely not 3 that you would want necessarily. But if these were 3 really good ones, then you could go for these. But more often than not, it's better just to dump into the Burning Chest then and end up getting all of your PvP stuff that way. But yep, that's the next PvP season for the next 11 weeks. Oh yeah, I forgot to go over them too. The 2 new troops. So this one, I love the premise of what its final trait is. It is just doing it for like the worst thing ever. So first, its ability, it just deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, boosted by blessed allies and enemies at an okay ratio, and then it converts all purple gems to angel gems. So as far as what it does for its ability, which I love this premise for its trait, it explodes... Oh wait, never mind. I thought this was all angel gems. Never mind, scratch it, scratch it, scratch it. It's horrible. I read this earlier as it explodes all angel gems, not an angel gem. Never mind, I don't like the premise. What I thought this was earlier is that it explodes all of a gem type, because I would love to see that for every power gem in the game eventually. Like a troop that can explode all of a given gem type that's a specific power gem. So for example, all angel gems, all, you know, death mark gems, all whatever from their final trait. Because something like that for the stars would be so good for either of the 2 stars, because of things like Stellarex, Wanda Stars, stuff like that. But never mind, this is just a single explode. Never mind, this is dead content. Okay. I thought it was all angel gems. Which honestly, even if it was, it wouldn't have even been that good, because that's a pretty underwhelming gem to end up doing it for. However, yeah, doing a single one, yeah, that's bad. And even if this gets maxed into 3, that's still bad compared to all. Never mind, scratch that. It's useless. Though you should never be buying these anyways. 2,500 gold marks, even for some of the best mythics in the game, is pretty much not worth it over just getting 25 deed books. 25 deed books is way better value, and you should pretty much never go for these. They do save you 4,000 diamonds in the future. However, I personally feel like 25 deed books is more value than 4,000 diamonds. But if they ever are worthwhile to you, then you could end up going for it. But personally, I would say the deed books are better more often than not. One that is always worth going for, though, which ends up saving 800 diamonds in the future of having to get into Soulforge, is getting the Legend. So if you end up getting 150,000 PvP points over the course of the 11 weeks, you can end up getting the Legend here. As far as what he does, not too good. He dispels an enemy and then deals some true damage to them, boosted by barrier gems, and then creates 5 barrier gems. This could end up backfiring and of course give the enemy barrier. However, since he has Dispel, he will basically just hit through the enemy barrier if they were to have gotten that. So he does have basically a counter to his own mechanic attached to him, so that's at least okay. But nothing too special, just a little bit of score reduction at 40%, and it gives a bunch of life and armor to all divine allies when matching for an extra turn. This wouldn't be that bad if it was for, oddly enough, White Helm. The Sword's Edge doesn't really have as many good ways to boost ratio compared to that of White Helm. So a little bit unfortunate that he wasn't like a White Helm Holy Knight instead, but yeah, overall, pretty underwhelming. But it does save 800 diamonds getting him, so if you're getting 150,000 or more PvP points this season, definitely make sure to just get a copy of him, as well as save you from having to get him for your collection later down the line, as those troops seem to not go into the key drop table at any point ever. They only are from the Soulforge whenever they eventually rotate, which they seem to never want to do. Anyways, with all the PvP stuff out of the way, let's go over everything that we have going on throughout the week. So invasions, as far as all the teams, this is specifically Monster. So Invasion, of course, you're going to be up against a bunch of tower stuff, so you generally just want to be using anything that can do a bunch of damage to tower. As far as any monster category that is tower based that is good, that you'd want to run at first slot, that isn't the one that you basically have to use, which is of course the Horror Strike champion, is the Sharptooth. So this thing has a little bit of score reduction, which is always great to have. Becomes enraged when he gets a kill, so you'll even be able to hit through that 75% reduction one, that one brown-blue tower, which is really annoying. And it also has a chance to extra turn and a chance to get all of its mana back. Really, really great troop overall. And yeah, we're just plopping that in first slot, mana accumulation behind it. We're using this because we have to, but it also has double magic, so we'll be one-shotting even further. And if an enemy dies, also gets a bless all allies. I don't think there's really too much you need to bless against, but you know, that's still nice to have. And Megavores most is here for the armor tier. For the earlier range, this probably won't matter that much, but you can armor tier them once you get past the one-shot range to be able to bring them back into one-shot range, as this will tear away all of their armor, and then you can start one-shotting with your two tower troops once again if they fall out of one-shot range. Unfortunately, his insta-kill doesn't end up doing anything, as they do have immune to insta-kill, of course, but it's mostly just there for the armor tier. Low Rarity team's actually running a pretty similar premise, just running Wand of Stars, whatever explodey weapon you have to go and mana accumulate, and for this, we're just doing a little bit of skull pressure. We have a convert into skull immediately off to start a battle. You'd even do that at the earlier battles when you're not needing the Megavores effect yet, and until you end up needing it. But basically, the skull pressure is, of course, you have 5 times skull damage, assuming they're ascended, on both your Sharp Tooth as well as the one that you have to use. So both of them wind up doing 5 times skull damage every single time you take one of the skulls, and it is whatever mana accumulation weapon you want to use. Wand of Stars just being the most flexible one, but if you don't have it, just cover whatever colors are still missing, and just put whatever resummon explodey weapon for mana accumulation that you can fit in there. As far as Underworld is concerned, it is a blue-green restriction, or sorry, blue-red restriction. So for this, and of course you can run any color weapon for this thing. Wait, did I run Daughter of... Wait, it's not blue-red. Wait, what color was it? Oh wait, I think I was thinking of the... Did I do the wrong thing? No, it can't be. I think I just put the wrong troop there. Why did I put... Wait, now I'm confused. Wait, we gotta fix this. Wait. Fangmore is blue-red, is it not? It is. Why did I put a brown-purple there? Okay. Did I do that for the other one too? No, I did it correctly on it. What? Why? Okay, I'm confused. But anyways, maybe I was thinking because it converts blue. I was thinking that. All right, well, let's just put an Empower there that helps. All right, Empower. We need a blue-red Empower. Go. Anything. Drowned Stellar's fine. All right, we'll put a Drowned Stellar there. Boom. All right, now we have it. It converts yellow to blue, which is a color you're not even using. Fill that into Rowan. Good to go. Boom. All right, there we go. Anyways, team fixed. But, yeah. Blue-red restriction, and they're just going for a Rowan quick kill for the lower level range. For high, you could also run, of course, Tesla quick kill, and because we have access to blue. And for the higher level range, we're just running a bunch of Takshakas to feed in the Maelstrom Dagannoth, just doing a bunch of insta kills, getting all his mana going. You technically don't even need Wand of Stars, mostly just there to cover a little bit of color. But of course, is for mana accumulation, get your bless in case they have something annoying. We also have this for mech, just to get rid of Dispel, just to get rid of that from the enemy, though. For this team, you shouldn't really need it as much, as the Maelstrom Dagannoth should just be able to go do 4 insta kills and just swipe out the entire team. And then for the Pure Faction team, we're running Double Chief Dagon, Shaman, Set, and the Satori. Basically, you want to go into the final battle with at least one of each of these. Whole premise with this is guy is really tanky, and you just keep stacking up his attack over and over again until you're in a decent kill range. You then end up using this to get a bunch of red mana accumulation, hitting it on whatever the highest populated gem is on the board, and it'll create that many reds. So if it's 10 of whatever that color is, it'll create 10 reds. And this just creates a bunch of skulls based on how much bleed. You have a bunch of bleed on everything on the team. They'll keep bleed pressuring the enemy. Once you have that full boost ratio, you'll be able to get the skulls, and you basically start using him as soon as you have enough attack from your Chief Dargon. And if one of them goes down, you only need one to go clear out the final fight. You're just running double here in case one of them does end up dying, as he only has ways to increase his attack. He does not have any durability gain, so he can be damage pressured out, especially if the enemy gets some skulls, or if you miss with your skull spam. As far as the Necromancer class, this is for undeads from Kedar. This is basically just run a bunch of pharaohs into whatever weapon you want. Though if you don't have pharaohs, start replacing out with mana links, so things like Azarus. So basically just go a whole team of Azaruses, or a whole team of Ferris Raz, or Pharaoh Kafra, I mean, or something in between, depending on what you have access to. Either 3, 2, or 1 Pharaohs, based on what you have, and then just offset with however many links you have to go and get into whatever weapon you're going to be manipulating into. In this case, we're just doing it with a Black Manacle example, but you can use Ruby Weapon or whatever else you want to end up going down the route of. For Underspire, this is specifically Kedar troops. So for this, a little bit annoying. Kedar, honestly, does not have the greatest of damage source. A lot of Deathmark, which of course is really inconsistent. This team too is also using Deathmark. We're using Deathmark off a weapon to also do damage to all enemies using Deathbringer. There's a bunch of Pharaohs for a bunch of brown mana accumulation, even more Deathmark. And Tome Knight for a little bit of skull pressure that we can end up doing both off of Pharaoh as well as just the skulls on the board. It also ends up gaining a lot of durability, a lot of attack, and barrier, so it pretty much will never die. You're just using that while chipping them down over and over again until your death marks kill or until you chip them into kill range with your skull damage. And that's pretty much the whole premise there. Definitely not the easiest of weeks as far as a quick win. Though I do have to say the low rarity team seems kind of fun. We got Tome Knight here, which of course, same as before. We're just doing this to gain a bunch of durability, a bunch of attack, everything else. Gains barrier. Pretty unkillable for the most part. Really solid troop. Stonecutter here, we're just doing for a bunch of mana accumulation and backup summon. Also to cover the rest of the colors that we're missing. Skeleton, really cheap common that does a bunch of skull pressure. Creates 7 skulls, gains a bunch of armor, and gains extra turn. And the Sekhite Warrior does gives a bunch of armor to an ally and then does damage based on how much armor they have. There are 2 targets you could use this on, depending on what state of the battle you're in. You could either use it on Tome Knight, and because it has barrier, it will hopefully not take too much skull damage, so you'll be able to maintain most, if not all, of your armor value. And alternatively, if your Tome Knight is taking too much damage, you're just going to let it die and start resummoning with this. The alternative is to put it on Skeleton, because Skeleton is already gaining armor every single time you cast it, and it needs to keep stacking even more armor with the Sekhite Warrior. It's at a pretty safe location of 3rd slot behind your hero. And you'll be good to go. You could even run Elementals here if you want to keep it even safer. Though we are doing Necromancer, of course, for the huge amount of extra stats. Pretty noteworthy also being armor, aside from the magic, which of course works really well for the Sekhite Warrior's armor boost ratio there. And it's pretty much the whole premise there. Either throw the Sekhite Warrior onto Tome Knight or onto Skeleton, and the rest of the team is basically just a mana accumulation skull loop. Beyond that, we have the Guild War teams. Finally, we're here. So, Guild Wars, of course, is taking place on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week. And we'll be streaming every single night as well. It is specifically for the Suncrest restriction. So Suncrest is a little bit of a weird location because a lot of the Strixes that it synergizes well with, like Finesse and a few others, exist outside of Suncrest. So you won't be able to use them because this is a Suncrest restriction, not a Strix restriction. So you're a bit more restricted than you otherwise would be. The other thing that's a little bit restrictive is since it is a Suncrest restriction, which is specifically a Kingdom restriction, this means you are also going to be restricted on your weapon. So you're going to have to use a weapon that is based on Suncrest. It has to be a Suncrest weapon specifically. So that greatly limits what you would otherwise be able to use compared to if it was a strict restriction where you could run Wand of Stars or, you know, whatever you want to end up putting there. Though keep in mind, if you are doing Wand of Stars, when applicable, is only usable offensively, not defensively. You cannot use it defensively, otherwise it gets replaced with Prismatic Orb. Do not set your defense team as Wand of Stars or Stellarix. That also gets replaced with Diamantina. Anyways, so as far as our first team here, this is of course our high rarity team using as high rarity stuff as we can that's still viable. For this, we're using a Quetzalma Zillapachli team. Zillapachli was available in Soulforge, what, last week? 2 weeks ago? Pretty recently. I ended up mentioning it on the weekly video back then. So if you end up picking that up, yeah, one of the main teams or components of this team was available then. So if you end up picking that up, you would have that. The other high rarity thing we're using here is Quetzalma. It's another mythic from the location. Ends up doing a pretty small amount of scatter damage boosted by a chosen gem. And then ends up creating a bunch of yellow. So basically what this does is you choose a gem, you go and remove all of that gem. Unfortunately, it's removed, so you don't get mana accumulation from it. However, you do get to create 10 yellow on a reduced board. So you basically want to go and choose whatever color you need to least, or whatever color is most populated. It will then create 10 yellow on the board on that already shrunk down board, which will give you a higher chance of extra turning, plus all the cascades that happen from the 10 gems that you end up removing. Ideally, this thing should gain extra turn quite a bit, assuming you're not frozen on anything on your team. And you basically just keep spamming this over and over again in order to get a bunch of value. And it has a 20% chance to just outright resurrect, assuming it's not stunned. And it ends up coming back with full mana too if that ends up happening. Shouldn't really depend on this, but if it does happen, it's really nice as you just get to recast it immediately. It might even gain you mana if it kills it when it only has like 10 mana remaining and then goes straight to 26 as it dies. Though it only happens 20% of the time. We have resummon here because inevitably that thing will end up dying at some point. And this is just for a bunch of mana accumulation, giving a bunch of status effects to all Strix on the team, which is our whole team because we are using a perpetual yellow Stormcaller hero class, which of course is a Strix. And we're doing this for a bunch of mana accumulation as well as to resummon for when the Quetzalma inevitably dies. E-Cattle here is for basically perpetual Yellowstorm if you weren't already doing it off your class, because you might need to switch your class occasionally to something else, maybe mech, maybe Elementalist, whatever you need for utility. But we have Empower here into Lightstorm, and it has Lightstorm off of both its ability as well as off of its cast. So you basically have Perpetual Yellowstorm as well as Yellow Pressure to get that up immediately to try to get off the ground so you can start immediately getting all your mana. And then we have the Zillapachli. Zillapachli is a really weird, underwhelming troop from this location, but does have synergy in a 4x Strix team. I mean, in a 4x Suncrest team. In a 4x Strix, you would never use this thing. but at 4 times Suncrest, it does get a little bit of viability. Main reason being is it helps cover some colors you otherwise would probably not necessarily have from the kingdom. Particularly blue and green, I believe, are the main two that are a little bit harder to end up filling in this kingdom, particularly blue. So it ends up filling some of the colors that you otherwise would not have been able to fill from a team like this. But the other thing it ends up doing is its final trait. This kingdom loves to spam yellow, a little bit of brown and red as well, but it's mostly yellow. And this thing deals 12 damage to a random enemy for every single time you end up matching yellow, which of course we're going to be doing a lot. Quetzalma does a bunch of yellow every single time it casts. E-Cattle does a bunch of yellow. And if we cascade from this, we might end up getting yellow because we have Yellow Storm active. So full clearing the entire board of all those yellows would hopefully cascade a ton of yellows with the Yellow Storm we have. So your chance of taking yellow, really solid since you have Perpetual Yellow, everything else doing it. And this is basically like mini Zolgoth. It deals a bunch of damage to an enemy boosted by purple gems, which you're not going to have too many on the board because obviously you're boosting for yellow. However, the thing that's interesting here is if there is a storm, which you should have, this thing can cast a Yellow Storm. This thing has Perpetual Yellow Storm if it doesn't get stunned. You can put immune to stun on this by going Elementalist as well, unless they have Curse Stun. And if there is a storm, it will deal double damage. And if you end up getting a kill with this, it is basically a Zolgoth. It'll end up killing an enemy and create 12 skulls. It just doesn't have the freeze and burn that Zolgoth does. But otherwise, it's basically just doing a Zolgoth ability, just with a lower chance of end up hitting. But it does it for a way lower mana cost. Zolgoth is 32, and this thing is only a 25 mana cost. So overall, not too bad. Using it for its final trait, you're using it for its insta-kill into a bunch of skull spam, which of course might put this into damage pressure, but if it does end up dying, you have a bunch of resummon. And of course, one other nice thing is with skulls, while there aren't too many things within the kingdom that like go all out with skulls, one thing that's kind of interesting is the amount of extra attack damage you have from going into Suncrest. There's a lot of, when you're doing a 3 times 4 times bonus, particularly 4 times, when you're pure Suncrest, pure Strix, you have a lot of extra attack value. Not to mention, you actually gain 1 attack every turn, I believe, as well for this. If you're running a class like this, you end up gaining that. There's a few different classes that have it, of course, not just this one, but plus 1 attack to all Strixes per turn. Obviously not a lot, but definitely adds up with all the other attack that you already have, so it's building up quite a bit over time. Beyond that, for the middle Rarity team, we have, the only thing that's kind of a little bit higher here that isn't really that accessible is the High Priestess Cha Azaka, just a legend from the kingdom, which hasn't been targetable up until this guild war, unfortunately. But the main premise with this is just as a standard AoE, but it's boosted by, by yellow gems. But the main thing here is it blesses all yellow allies. Of course, it is pretty notorious that when you're doing PvP that you're going to be up against a lot of Elementalist classes. And of course, if they're not running Curse, and they don't have any Dispel or anything, if you simply just get Bless up before they really start going, or even if they do go start going and they don't have any way to get rid of your Bless, this will protect you immensely against the Elementalist hero class, as all the things like Stun, Burn, everything else won't be able to affect you if you have immune to all stats effects. So it ends up working out really well to help protect your team. Also has Perpetual Lightstorm, so you don't have to use Stormcaller hero class. You still could, but this opens up using Mech, to using Elementalists, whatever you need for your team to end up making it work. Main reason for Mech is mostly Dispel. 50% mana start with Dispel. Whenever you're using something that hits all enemies, it's pretty nice to have, which is our main damage source here. It hits all enemies simultaneously. Off of Zachi, just does a bunch of damage to all enemies, and if there's a storm, it'll explode 5 gems. Also has a lot of backup resummon, so if your mana accumulator ends up dying at first slot, you end up resummoning. And of course, we're also still using a resummoning exploding weapon here too. So if this isn't enough off the 35% chance per extra turn, if you're not able to get an extra turn, you could also simply just do it off of your weapon. And even if hero dies, you then also have a double resummon here, assuming it doesn't get stunned. You can resummon both to first slot and second slot with your Zachi as well, getting more mana accumulation there. And you just keep spamming your 2 AoE options between your High Priestess and your Zachi. You want to be spamming your Zachi way more because it has some mana accumulation, but of course you want to make sure you maintain your blesses across your team, so you will still be casting this occasionally. However, it does have a guaranteed chance to end your turn, but it's probably worth it to end up reapplying Bless to make sure you don't get affected by a bunch of stats effects. And this is going to be something that even in higher rarity teams, you're probably going to be inserting into your team if you have it, in order to protect you against heavy stats effect related teams if they happen to not have Dispel or any way to deal with Bless mechanic. So definitely a really good offset troop. The biggest thing that it also allows you to do is opens you up to using Elementalist or any other hero class, since you have Perpetual Lightstorm on it, which makes it so you don't need to use Stormcaller's Perpetual Yellow Storm, which you would otherwise need off of its final trait, but it kind of frees you up. This does lead to, obviously, slightly less stats as far as your total bonuses, as you'll only be 3 times Suncrest and 3 times Strix, but it's generally going to be worth it to put Bless onto your team and run a better hero class overall, compared to being forced to have to use the other one. For this one, we're using the low rarity team. The reason why this is low rarity is it is all, well, aside from the weapon, there's one thing that you might need to dig for. We have not had a Suncrest event, I don't think, recently, so you might just have to deal with whatever explodey weapon or whatever you have. So your weapon might have to be drastically different here. However, everything else that you see here is available literally right now if you want to go get it. They're always available because these are just faction troops. These are from the Stonesong area, so you can throw Chaos Shards at any point between now and Thursday, ideally on Tuesday when you're going to get a bunch from the Tuesday faction event. But anytime between now and then, you can go and get yourself, or at any point, even when the event starts, but you can just throw a bunch of Chaos Shards at Stonesong Eyrie, go and get all the troops from there. And the two main ones that you're going to need are Harpy Mage and Queen Zachi. Harpy Mage has a bunch of mana accumulation, ends up creating a Brown Storm for you. Also a 75% mana start for the initial one. Summoned ones don't get this, but the initial one does, so you get pretty much turn 2 mana accumulation. If you go and just take your first turn to grab either yellow or red, you'll get full mana on this, and then on your next turn you can go and cast it for a bunch of mana accumulation across your entire team. Hopefully that'll be enough to get this rolling, and just kind of keep going from there and just keep spamming your Zachis until you win. And yeah, basically just doing the same thing as before, just spamming Zachi. If there's a storm, it'll end up doing the 5 explodes, which you have 2 different ways to do a storm. It's actually one of the reasons why we're using specifically Golden Talon, because if that does go down, you have Light Storm off of this. So you have Light Storm off of this, and you have Brown Storm off of this, which is also what we set our banner into, yellow and brown. And we're just spamming that until you end up killing with Zachi. Keep in mind, if they have Submerge, you're probably going to need to switch your hero class to something like Mech or something similar. But I put Elementalist here as it is quite a bit safer to end up running with Elementalist. Also, one other thing with Elementalist, actually, was it this one or the other one? No, it was actually the other one. I actually forgot about this with Mech. But one funny thing with Mech, something I wouldn't really expect to ever need to use on it. But let's say, hypothetically, the enemy has a ton of Submerge. Obviously, something like this, where you have hit all enemies, and hit all enemies would struggle quite a bit. So you're pretty much going to have to use something like Mech Hero Class or something similar to go dispel off all of those Submerges. Otherwise, you don't have another way of dealing with it. One really funny thing with Mech that I kind of forgot about until I looked at this page. It gains 1 attack to all Strix per turn. Something you would almost never use, because what on earth are you using Mech Hero Class with a bunch of Strix? But it's like the one circumstance where you would. Because, yeah, you need something to get rid of their Submerge if they have it. And Mech's pretty much the best way to do that. And, yeah, this is kind of funny because you're giving +1 attack to the rest of your team. So, hey, it does have some synergy there and covers the rest of the gaps that you need in the team. But yeah, those are the 3 Guild War teams, which, of course, I'll be messing around with starting this Thursday when the event rolls around. Anyways, let's go over everything else now. So, other things going on this week. Soulforge. What do we have for Soulforge? Soulforge, I believe this is all duds. I was looking at this earlier. There's like nothing here. Like absolutely nothing. Where is everything? Man, that's not missing something here. There is like absolutely no value at all this week for anything in Soulforge. Even the weapons aren't that great. Though if you are going to get one thing in Soulforge, I'd probably say Dead Gauntlet is the way to go. Dead Gauntlet, while not the best synergy within Kedar itself, is really good for undead teams. Of course, there are a lot of kingdoms out there that use undead beyond just Kedar. And if you're building a 4x undead team, this is generally a really good thing to have to put together an undead team. Deals a bunch of damage to an enemy boosted by undead allies, then creates a mix of blue and purple gems, which are 2 colors that undead generally need a ton of, particularly purple, based on undead allies. And of course, if you're running a 4x undead team, then that would be a 4x bonus there. But yeah, 4x undead teams uses quite a bit. So if you're ever going to need this in the future for some kind of PvP team that's 4x undead or some kind of similar restriction, you might want to get this now because by the time it rolls around, you'd have to wait all the way till next Kedar event. So even though it's not the most useful thing for Kedar, it is very useful for future undead teams. So worth considering in that regard. Anyways, beyond that, this Tuesday we have ourselves the faction event for Fangmore, which is a red-blue restriction. Wednesday we have one of the past Kedar pets. Thursday we have the class event for Necromancer hero class. It's okay. You don't tend to use it too often. The only time you really bring out Necromancer is if you're running 4x undead team, and because it has 50% mana start and works overall kind of decent compared to some of the other undead classes. But beyond that, you don't really end up using it for much. And then Friday we have ourselves, or technically Thursday and onwards, we have ourselves the Guild Wars, going from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And as far as the Guild Wars, of course, don't forget on Tuesday and Wednesday to go set your defend team. You can find it underneath Guild and then underneath Guild Wars. And if you're a guild leader, don't forget you can also set your guild's keep to whatever you end up wanting to do it for. Also, I'm probably going to cover teams tomorrow on all of the blue layout stuff. So, actually, I might actually cover it later today so I could actually show the team. Because if I do this, I can actually show this for the video. But yeah, I think these are the ones we're going to do it for. Because we did last week, we did it for green, which I would say is generally the one you want to do it for. But if no one in your guild manually switches it, I believe it always defaults to blue. So sometimes you are going to have to defend for blue if your guild leaders in your guild forget to go and switch it to green or whatever other color you want. So we're going to cover teams for blue defense, not in this video, but in a future video, hopefully tomorrow probably. Probably record it today and upload it tomorrow, just so we could show it with the actual thing in game. Because after tomorrow, we will be set to green. So, yeah, it's overall just seems to have the best overall layout because you have, honestly, everything here is like so strong as far as where you can set a location. Like it has at least one like really solid row for every single one. Obviously Divine Elemental, Naga, and then Goblin for the other one. But the main reason people tend to run blue is for this effect. It freezes 3 random enemies and creates 3 freeze gems after 15 turns, which is way stronger than Entangle. So its effect is way stronger in that regard. It just says defend options just aren't as good. For top, you have Dragon, which is pretty decent. For middle, I guess you kind of have Undead and Rogue. I don't feel like either of those are like super over the top. Wargear is decent. And I guess Giant is kind of tanky, but I don't feel like any Giant teams are like really over the top. A lot of these are pretty average other than Dragon. But I think the main reason people run this is for the freeze mechanic and because blue. Blue is decently strong to be able to defend here, especially with the freeze mechanic that you would end up getting after X amount of turns. So I guess between these 2 rooms is probably one of the main reasons people tend to go for it, I would say. As the actual paths are not as strong, but it does have a little bit of a stronger final battle, which I guess you could kind of do it based on that as well. Because technically all these earlier battles almost don't even matter as long as you have like the most fortified fortress in existence. So whatever color has like the best team setups you could possibly end up making could technically be a strategy as well. Because if because the strategy would go in green is you're trying to stop them before they get to the palace. But of course, the other alternative is just pick a color that is just really good for if they make it to the palace, they just lose. Which I think is the main strategy with blue generally. It's not necessarily to stop people before they get to the palace, but to stop people at the palace so that they don't get the really big score. So it's mostly the blue team all the way at the end and the dragon team I think that matters the most. But we'll still cover teams for all of them in the blue format since we covered green last Guild War. Anyways, beyond that, don't forget to set your defend teams on... actually, I was in there. I didn't even mention it. But yeah, don't forget to go set your defend teams for your locations on Tuesday and Wednesday. To set one and go set your defend team so you end up getting the maximum amount of rewards. Rewards is based on at least 27 people defending, so make sure to go and do that. Because anything less than that, you will end up getting less reward every single time you end up getting a win for the duration of the battle. As far as the shiny troop, I would say it's pretty bad. I'm actually not sure what he's getting, but the legend is already pretty bad that it's being attached to. It is specifically this one over here as far as a reward. So I say this is a pretty skippable PvP season week because this is the guy that's giving it for. If we go to Kingdom, go over to Suncrest. I forget his name because he's so dead content, but it's this guy right here. I'll know him the second I see him. This one, Garuda. It's really bad. It summons a firestorm, deals a bunch of damage to all enemies, and gains 1 magic, boosted by red gems. So I assumed they would make this ratio like 1-to-1. And even then, that's not that good. Like, let's say there's 10 red gems on the board. Even at 1-to-1, there's only 10 magic. That's not great. Firestorm is supposed to have synergy with Phoenicia, but Phoenicia has fallen off so hard. So absurdly hard. So for the most part, that's not really that relevant. But yeah, and he doesn't even have that good of a final trait either. He's just overall really, really, really bad. And I guess the shininess is trying to make him a little bit more viable, but it's not going to. If this thing was shiny, that would have been a lot better. If this thing would have gotten a better, I don't know, damage boost ratio or something. Like if we got a 1-to-1 based on that. But, and of course, lower mana cost because of that. But even at 13 mana cost with his boosted ability, like max shiny, he is not worth running. As you noticed with the teams that we did, I did not mention him in a single team. And that is because he's really, really, really bad. Even in like a mid-rarity team like this, you're probably not running him, even if you have him at level 3 shiny. It is just not worth it. Unless they're doing something really absurd with his ability, but I highly doubt they're doing enough of a boost to make it anything relevant. As they would need to make it boost based on like 3 magic. Like reverse that ratio. Make it so every red on the board is like 3, so that he gains like 30 magic every cast or something. Even then, he might still not be worth it. But anyways... but yeah, overall, Guild War, worth doing. Set your defend teams, but probably not worth buying this time around. Unless you just want to get it for completionist purposes. Anyways, beyond that, but I forget. Invasion, we kind of already went over this earlier, but of course, double magic, double score on the troop. Weapon is useless as always, as far as the weapon you end up getting here. The troop itself, you just want to put onto every single team. You do not have to max it in order to go get max points though. You can simply use the old other monsters that you might already have that are already maxed out, put them in front of it, and you're good to go. You do not need to upgrade this to be able to get your full amount of points. It would be helpful because it will do more damage overall and everything. However, it is not required for this game mode to max out this troop to get maximum amount of points. So if you simply just want to get a single copy, plop it somewhere on your team and just let the other ones do it. Because of course you have more than just one option. You actually have a couple. Sharptooth is really good, but anything that says tower here, you can end up using for really good damage. So you have the Crypt Worm, so if you want to use this instead, you could use that in there. You could use Sharptooth, obviously is the strongest one. You have this Hippo thing, but just make sure that this thing is on your team. But it does not need to be upgraded. You can simply just go like a double. Like you can go like Megavore. You can put another one here like Crypt Worm, have your mana accumulation weapon, and just have this thing just chilling in the back. And just have that be your team. As you do not need to cast this a single time or do anything with it. Don't need to upgrade or anything to get the maximum amount of points. You just let all the previous monsters that you might already have fully ascended, fully maxed out, do all of the work and go from there. So yeah, overall don't really need to bother with this. Just make sure it's on your team though. But you don't need to be upgrading it, I mean. Alright, so event key drop table. It is specifically for Kedar. One important thing to mention. Oh, no, it's not this kingdom. Never mind. Or is it? Let me double check. Was it this kingdom? Let me double check one sec. Something real quick. Base rarity. Show all. Never mind, it's not this one. I thought this one had one of the old PvP troops in it. But everything that is not in drop table here, that you can see here, are the 5 troops from Fangmoor. The current invasion troop that we're just mentioning, the Horosite champion, you have to go and get that from the current event by spending gems. As well as, actually, that's it. Those are the only things not in drop table. So the current invasion troop, as well as the 5 Fangmoor troops. Well, it's actually not that many that aren't in drop table. But everything else that you see here is it worth opening event keys this week? It's okay. If you are going to open just to try to get something, Keeper of Souls is pretty nice, just for Controlled Skull. We have things like Immortal Ossifer now, which is kind of another version of this. But you can still use Immortal Ossifer and Keeper of Souls in the same team to get even more value. So that is an option. Of course, one of the most noteworthy things here, though, keep it in mind, is like a 1 in 4,000 if you're going to be opening event keys. However, Pharaoh Khafre, this is the pretty much best mana accumulation troop in the entire game right now. As far as just overall value. It is exploding 2 random gems every single time its turn begins. This is exceedingly good value because it can never be countered, well, other than being stunned. But, you know, like you can't deny something on the board. Like that one that we got a couple months ago that explodes 2, that one goblin, that explodes 2 skulls every single turn. That seems like similar value. But it's not for 2 reasons. One is Skull is guaranteed not to be mana accumulation because it's a skull. It'll just do a little bit of skull damage, so that's already 1 less gem that you'll get for mana accumulation. But also, of course, there's a set amount of skulls on the board, and if they deny every skull, or there just happens to be no skulls remaining, it'll do nothing. But this will always have something, because there will always be gems on the board, obviously. There will always be 64 gems on the board. So he will always be able to get 2 explodes onto the board, regardless of board state at any given time. So as long as he's not stunned, and it does stack, of course. If you have 2 of them, it'll do 4. If you have 3 of them, it'll do 6. And I use this thing literally every single day for clearing out dailies. Actually, what's our current team for? I think it's this one right here. Literally every single day we're running a team somewhat like this or something similar for just killing out dailies, similar things. This goes really quick, either Stellaryx or Flower Dragon into double Khafre into 50% mana start into your dragon, either doing the dragon percent or in this case the elemental percent to get it up. And yeah, it's just really strong mana accumulation. It has convert into its own color as well, it gets to convert into brown. And while there are troops that do it for like half that amount of mana, it has the benefit of actually using brown, unlike the other ones. So even though it does it for a pretty hefty mana accumulate or pretty hefty mana number, it is gaining a lot of that mana back. It is also end up doing that for the brown that you end up getting. So you'll, even though you're going to have a little bit of an issue with that, you're still going to be able to get all your mana back every single time. Beyond that, it also has the Uber Doom Skull mechanic, which is pretty nice. You get to do a little bit of extra damage with those, just do 10 damage and explode in a 5x5 without the corners. And beyond that, you also get some Death Mark pressure. So on top of that, he even can get a free kill. Worst comes to worst, you could even win an entire battle off his free kills from that, because you're going to be able to pop them off the explodes that you end up getting, which would ultimately end up winning the battle eventually. And you even have Curse, so you even have Curse Death Mark whenever doing something like that in one of those kind of teams. But yeah, if you're opening event keys, you're mostly looking for this. There are a few other things you can kind of get. Honestly, the whole drop table is not bad. Like if you roll any of these, it's not the worst thing in the world, though you're mostly looking for Pharaoh if you're going for it. Pharaoh Nefertani is probably the weakest of these 4, But the main premise of this is it has Death Mark attached with Curse, so you don't need another troop, like you don't need Wand, you don't need anything else. Like at the other team I just showed, I had Mirage Queen there as a Curse option because he doesn't have it built in. But of course, something like this does have it built in. So you have Curse, you have Death Mark, you're good to go. Beyond that, we have Pharaoh Ra. Pharaoh Ra is a soul gain troop. This is not as viable these days compared to running it for... generally, if you want a bunch of souls, the best way to go and do it would be to go do Vault Event weekends. Generally, if you want to get a bunch of souls, it's just better to spend a little bit more time farming Vault Event weekends rather than doing it outside of Vault Event weekends. But if you do want to do it outside of Vault Event weekends, if you're still early game, you want to try to get a copy of it, it can be okay. Running 1 or 2 on a team and just getting a bunch of souls with something that can max out souls every single battle, gaining the 40 and then gaining like 300%, 150% because it does stack extra souls. Normally, it's better and far more accessible to go to Cedric and just do a double Cedric team for a bunch of extra gold if you are going to be doing one or the other. However, it is an option if you want to try going for it, though Cedric is far, far more accessible than Pharaoh Ra. And Rethamon is rather unique in that it is still the only troop in the game that has 4 times cleanse into skull spam. Divine Ishbala used to have this, that one legend that is a bunch of mana start to all divines. But after they nerfed her like 3 times over during one patch, including still being the only 50% mana start troop with 40% mana start, but they still haven't fixed that yet. But aside from that, one of the things that she also lost then was cleanse into skull spam, which now makes Rathamon, when he ended up getting released, the only troop in the game right now. There's some hero weapons I think that can somewhat do it, but as far as troops, is the only troop in the game that has skull spam while having cleanse. This of course is really relevant against elementalists or any kind of similar team that is running entangle, free, stuff like that to try to disable first slot, because this just cleanses it all off every single time you cast while getting your skull spam. So really, really good for some skull spam teams. Very niche as far as when you bring it out. But if skull spam teams ever make a huge comeback, this is definitely something that you'll probably see a lot, especially if Elementalist is still really popular around that time whenever it occurs. So it's potentially worth considering going for, just to see if you can end up getting it for future utility sake. In the current state of the game, there aren't too many use cases for it, but you will have a lot of use cases for it in the future. And that's the event key drop table. So yeah, not too bad. Let's see. Can we get anything? We'll just open 200 real quick. We got nothing. I was hoping we could just pull a random lucky mythic. Never know. It could happen eventually. Alright, beyond that, the only other thing to go over then is the shop. So as far as the new troop, it is... Actually, I don't think I checked it. Is it any good? It is a bunch of scatter damage boosted by red and skull gems, so nothing at all. And then burns a random enemy. Yes, it does nothing. It does have fire link though, so if you need a linker, I guess you have that. The only problem with this though is it is not a undead. The problem with this is you can't use it on Thursday class event, so you can't use this to go feed into like a Summer's Fury. You can't do it into a Dawnbringer because it specifically has to be undead. So yeah, this thing's kind of useless then. I guess there might be some niche situation where you might need red link for a team like this, but generally Kedar teams do not need red. So yeah, I'm not sure when you're really going to be running that. I guess maybe a Divine team, but honestly, Divines will have probably way better options by then, or already do. I mean, so yeah, there's just really no instance where you're going to need this. Like the one thing it might have been able to be used for, it can't even be used for because it's not undead. So yeah, just another dead content glory troop, which I just assume every single time is why I didn't even check it. I just assume like 20 times out of, or 19 times out of 20, that whatever is going to be there is just going to be dead content. I think like maybe once a year. So 1 in 12 times is when they actually make it viable. But this is not that weak. But anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, anything else, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. All the teams as well as Guild War teams, everything we mentioned for the week is in the description and pinned comment if you want to go and copy paste any of it. And as we mentioned earlier, we will go over a bunch of Guild War teams specifically for the blue Guild War Defend tomorrow. And just have a bunch of teams for all this, for all the applicable locations. And we'll go from there. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful week, wonderful Guild Wars. And I'll see you guys then for the upcoming Guild Wars this Thursday. Goodbye, everyone. And thanks for watching.